Lisa, did you see the Grammys?
You beat Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Well, you haven't heard the last of them.
When faced with the phrase one-hit wonder, Dexy's Midnight Runners would be one of the first bands to come to most US minds. Their mega hit, Come On Eileen, is one of the eternal dance floor fillers, a feat they could never have possibly repeated. But for Britain, Dexy's Midnight Runners represent one of the most unique, innovative, and downright best bands these isles have ever produced. Not quite the scar of the Specials or Madness, nor the new wave of the Jam or Elvis Costello. Dexys, with their American R&B inspired sound, three-piece horn section, and or Celtic strings, stood apart from their supposed peers. Not to mention the synthetic pop dominating the charts at the time. And with their numerous UK top 40 hits, including a second #1 in the form of Gino, they were way more than that single, meteoric single. So who were Dexy's Midnight Runners? Why did they go through 16 members before their worldwide smash? And what is Kevin Rowland actually singing about? This is New British Canon, and this is the story of Come On, Eileen. Dexy's Midnight Runners were formed in 1978 in Birmingham, England, by former Killjoys vocalist Kevin Rowland and guitarist Kevin Al Archer. Unlike the majority of other post-punk bands, Dexys took influence from the Northern Soul movement, a subculture of British youths that had grown up listening to obscure American soul and R&B singles, and Dexy's sound was based on that, mixed with punk's energy. Their initial idea was to make music people could dance to, that they felt was lacking from the class of '77. Taking their name from a slang term for Dexedrine, the 8-piece lineup distinguished themselves with a blaring 3-piece brass section. But at the time, not all audiences understood their sound, their horns, or the Otis Redding and Sam and Dave covers that became part of their live repertoire. The important point is that it was radical to do what we did in 1978. We looked back to the 60s and reinterpreted it. People thought we were a joke. We knew better. From the beginning, Rowland knew what he wanted, and his passion and intensity shaped the band. By his instruction, all band members quit their jobs, signed on the dole, and rehearsed 9 to 5 in abandoned warehouses, while also steering clear of pre-gig alcohol and drugs. While this made them a formidable live force and embedded a gang mentality within the band, living on top of each other under Rowland's leadership would grow tiresome. In 1979, the group did a tour opening for the Specials, where they varyingly impressed and confused audiences all around the UK. Said saxophonist Steve Spooner, "I can remember people's faces like there was a wind blowing them back, literally standing back going, wow, what's this? Nobody had heard anything like us. We were full on. It was an assault. There was no competition. We were it." After their 1979 debut single Dance Stance made its way to number 40 in the UK charts, their follow-up, Gino, defied all expectations and topped the charts for a single week in early 1980. The track's lyrics were inspired by a formative gig that Rowland had attended when he was 15, seeing forgotten soul singer Gino Washington and the Ram Jam Band play in London. Achieving number 1 with only their second single, the band had mixed feelings. On one side, they had been accepted by the single-buying public. On the other side, critics saw them as a tacky revival act, unworthy of admiration. That had been my dream as a kid, being on Top of the Pops. It was great to do that. I just wish I could have actually experienced it and savored it. I thought that if I got on Top of the Pops, no one would put me down. But it didn't work. I still felt unworthy of everything. By the end of the year, they had released their debut album, Searching for the Young Soul Rebels, with smart-mouthed brass-led powerhouses such as Tell Me When My Light Turns Green, and There My Dear. It confirmed them as one of the most exciting British bands since the Specials, and for 6 of the band's members, this seemed like the perfect time to leave and start their own bands away from the control of Kevin Rowland. After a tense 40-date European tour, and Rowland becoming increasingly isolated from the rest of the group, saxophonist Jeff Blythe and Steve Spooner, drummer Andy Grocott, keyboardist Mick Talbot, and bassist Pete Williams all left to form their own group, The Bureau. Soon after that, Rowland's chief co-songwriter, Archer, left to form Blue Ox Babes, leaving Rowland with only trombone player Big Jim Patterson remaining in his group. It was only the motivation of wanting to do them down that made me carry on, which isn't a very good basis for anything. I thought, it's my fucking group, and you're not gonna do that. I'm gonna form another Dexys Midnight Runners and beat those bastards. Rowland soon began assembling Dexys Mark II, resulting in a new look. As shown in the Christmas Top of the Pops performance of Gino, Rowland picked out an athletic, boxing-booted style, counter to Mark I's On the Waterfront chic. Due to the poor chart showing of Keep It Part 2, their label EMI dropped them. The band soon picked up by Phonogram. In this configuration, the band released 3 singles, with only 1981's Show Me making the top 20. This didn't instill confidence from their new label, and as the 8-piece band were each living off only £60 a week, Dexys would soon need to deliver a hit if they wanted to continue. Feeling that a change in sound was due, Rowland decided to implement a Celtic element, wishing to add strings and reinforce his Van Morrison allusions and cultural ancestry. While any other band leader might want to hire string players, Rowland instead ruled that the brass section needed to learn the cello within the next 2 months if they wanted to remain in the band. This alienated his new band further. Their next tour of theatres was known as the Projected Passion Revue. Though facing half-full venues, their 3 London shows at the Old Vic are noted as Dexys Midnight Runners' musical high points. In their aftermath, half the band left again. I think it has to change every year. I want it to be ever-changing and ever-challenging. Not just the music, but the group, the whole fucking thing. Always challenging, and a little bit threatening at times as well. To kick things up once in a while and just be good. Always good. Coming into 1982, Dexys had revised their lineup to feature a trio of string players, Helen Bevington, Steve Shaw, and Roger Huckle. Being that Rowland's word was law, he also renamed the string section so that they had Cod Irish names to coincide with the band's Celtic musical shift. Collectively known as the Emerald Express, Bevington became O'Hara, Shaw became Brennan, and Huckle Macduff. Fans' first indication of the band's new lineup and sonic direction was on Celtic Soul Brothers. Which did not make the UK top 40. But they had been working on a song since the Projected Passion Revue shows, named Yes Let's, which would become very important for the band indeed. The version of Yes Let's that debuted on the 1981 tour was a very loose approximation of what it would become, still with dominant horn lines, as well as a recurring group chant of its title throughout. but its opening lyric, bereft of its iconic phrasing, was the seed that would become Come On, Eileen. As standard, Dexy songs would go through weeks, if not months, of rewriting. Fragments of ideas being worked out until they were perfect in Roland's mind. Musically, as well as strings, banjo and accordion was added to really differentiate the song from what they had done previously. And this was combined, as before, with a new fashion choice. This time based on Irish vagabonds, scruffy hair, dungarees, and scarves. The song itself was inspired by several different sources. The rhythm, that bump, ba-bump, has been a staple of pop music since the 1960s. Present in Tom Jones's It's Not Unusual. But also in Unit 4+2's Concrete and Clay. Its chorus melody is most likely inspired by Northern Soul staple, Jimmy James and the Vagabonds, A Man Like Me. But most interestingly, the Celtic instrumentation and slowing down and speeding up part was stirred from a demo tape that Archer had left Roland before his departure that featured future Blue Ox Babe song, What Does Anybody Ever Think About? Archer, upon hearing Come On Eileen on its release, could see the similarities. It was my music, there was no mistaking it. To be fair, he wrote the words to the music, but it was the tune that was so distinctive and made it a success. That tune was mine. Patterson, who was credited on the song, countered. At the end of the day, it's between those two. Kevin didn't steal any songs from Kevin Archer, because I co-wrote all those songs, and I certainly didn't steal anything. But what is Come On Eileen actually about? Roland at the time said it was about a girl he'd grown up with, and once they got to teenage, sexual desire had complicated their friendship. Others had favourably compared the song's romantic, let's get out of this dead-end town theming to Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. The most compelling explanation, and the one Roland has stuck to most, is using Eileen as a composite of multiple women to represent his teenage sexual repression. He told The Guardian in 2014, on the Projected Passion review tour in '81, there was this girl interviewing us, and she was going on about the spiritual nature of this music, and thinking to myself, right, but that's not what I'm feeling at this moment. She was really good looking, and I was reminded of being a teenager, surrounded by Irish Catholic girls you couldn't touch, but at the same time with these overpowering feelings of lust, which you're not supposed to have. A lot of the misinterpretation of this song, and everything else Dexys have done, comes down to Roland's somewhat garbled delivery. While working on their previous album, producer Peter Wingfield noted, the lyrics were very important to him, and it was like this big statement. And then to my mind, he sang it so sort of stylized as to make the words virtually unintelligible. I remember saying, listen, if the words are so important, people should hear what they are. On occasion, Roland has stated that his vocals had been inspired by the hiccup-laden style of chairman of the board frontman, General Johnson. Thematically, Come On Eileen is the closest Roland ever got to the loved up soul of his vocal inspiration. Come On Eileen was released in June 1982. After a few weeks crawling up the charts, a July appearance on Top of the Pops in that iconic garb skyrocketed the track's chances. It hit number 1 on the 1st of August, where it stayed for 4 weeks. It would go on to be the UK's biggest selling single of 1982 and win the 1983 Brit Award for Best Single. Its parent album, 2RAE, would top out at number 2 and remain in the UK album chart for 46 weeks. The track wouldn't be released in the US until 1983, which along with the MTV super rotation of its music video, got Come On Eileen to number 1, knocking Michael Jackson's Billie Jean off the top of Billboard. But Roland got no joy from their lofty pop cultural position. By this point, the touring band had become a 12-piece, filled with session players that weren't from Birmingham and cared not for Roland's original vision for the band, nor their gang mentality. He then sabotaged a potential support slot for David Bowie's Serious Moonlight tour, him telling the crowd they can fuck off after opening with their big hits. Do you know, I didn't feel any sense of achievement. I think I did really want a career in America, and I was desperately disappointed, because I knew that, by that time, we weren't taken seriously. We were seen as a novelty act. They thought we were Dickensian or something. Dexy's reaction to their success was released 3 years later, the grand sweeping ambition of Don't Stand Me Down. With 12-minute epics and beautiful Beach Boys harmonies, it was a commercial flop on release, but is now considered by some as one of the best British albums of the 1980s. But due to the then present public indifference to the album, it led to their dissolution in 1987. While they were seen as a novelty in their time, the years since have shined kindly on Dexy's Midnight Runners. They bucked against every trend that made the new wave electronic 1980s what it's often remembered as. Not using synthesizers, not being polished and clean, not neatly fitting into a movement or scene for the sake of easy marketability. While other supposed second British invasion flash in the pans could easily get confused for each other, Kajagoogoo, A Flock of Seagulls and Modern English only discernible by their outlandish haircuts, Dexys stood apart and alone. Unresigned to their fate, they marked themselves out as different. And in that moment, and forevermore, they meant everything to so very many. And with Come On Eileen, I swear, you'll hum that tune forever. Thanks for watching. What supposed one-hit wonder do you think deserves more respect? Comment down below. If you like what I'm doing here, maybe think about becoming a patron. For a few dollars a month, you can vote on future topics and see new videos early. I'd like to thank new top tier members, James Wong, Seisman, and Manuel Siebert. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.